Trinity Trigger is a new action RPG inspired by role-playing games from the 90s like Secrets of Mana, but strives to add an element of modernity by including fast-paced combat. I had a good time playing it for a while on Nintendo Switch, but eventually I gave up, and I'm going to tell you exactly why. Hello you gorgeous human being, it's Miss Bubbles. In today's video I'm gonna tell you exactly the good and the bad of Trinity Trigger to help you decide if it's the game for you, and of course a shout out to XC for providing me with a game code. Starting with the story, and we keep it spoiler free over here, it starts you off with Cyan, who has a weird mark on his eye that he has no idea where it came from, and somehow he stumbles upon a trigger, which is where the game's name comes from. These are cute little pet companions that can transform into a wide range of deadly weapons. So when you discover this trigger, it promises to help you find out where you got your mark from. And thus your adventure begins, where you end up meeting other characters that you can add to your party, each with their own triggers, and once you unlock your third character, you can actually start playing in co-op mode with your friends. Moving to the presentation, you can instantly see that the characters have a more hand-drawn art style, while the world feels more 3D, if that makes sense. Actually, one of the reasons I was so excited to play Trinity Trigger is because of the world. It actually looks a lot like the one found in Fantasy Life, but Trinity Trigger has a more subtle color palette. In the sound department, voice acting is pretty good, but there are certain instances where you'll have to read the dialogue instead. As for the sound effects, they felt pretty engaging, like when you level up or pick up an item, it feels that much sweeter and more rewarding because of the sound that it makes. Finally, music is really good. Each area has its own tunes, and it was so fun and engaging to listen to. My favorite was the one in the desert, as the track reminded me of songs from Lebanon, which is the country that I come from. In terms of the HUD, you have a mini map on the upper right corner of the screen, which also displays how many treasure chests you've unlocked so far, and you can click the minus button on your Switch controller to access the full map. And a tip for the treasures is to look out for the brownish trees on the map. These usually have a hidden passage that you can use to find your treasure chest. Then on the upper left corner, you can see your story objectives, and down in the middle is where your character's health and XP meter is going to be. The menu system is pretty simple. From there, you can change the trigger attack, which we'll talk about a little bit more in the gameplay section, as well as change your character's attack and defense accessories, which are called manatite here. You can also view your travel log for your current quests and see what items you have. And while we're on the topic of the presentation, let's talk about the world a little bit. You'll be unlocking new areas on your adventure, and they belong to different biomes. For instance, Astrum is known for having a lot of mushrooms that glow, and to be fair, they really look beautiful and magical, while Sandheim and its surrounding regions represent a desert, and they're not as colorful as Astrum is. Now, on your travels, you will come across different towns to access shops, which I'll discuss more again in the gameplay section, but to be honest, the shops and buildings feel pretty empty. There's no distinct touch to them like, let's say, houses in Room Factory, so they feel very bare bones, and I wish they had a little bit more detail added in. But enough about the presentation, you're here for the gameplay, so let's get into it. First and foremost, there are no difficulty settings in Trinity Trigger, and I say that because I know a lot of you care about it, and to be fair, so do I. But I have to say, regardless of that, the game's combat is not that difficult. The difficult stuff, we're gonna get into it in a bit, but I can assure you, not having difficulty levels in this game is completely fine. Now, Trinity Trigger is all about the fast-paced combat in the outer world, as well as having dungeon crawling and different bosses to fight. The questing is pretty simple. You have your main quest that helps you progress the storyline, but you'll also unlock side quests later on, which can be fun to complete and a great way to gain useful rewards. In the outside world, depending on which biome you're in, there will be different monsters to fight, which will drop essential items you need to craft. So in the snowy region, you'll find frozen bunnies, for example, but don't let their cuteness fool you because they are out for blood. Whereas in the desert, you'll find enemies like bats and lizards instead. As you traverse the world, you don't have that much guidance, so you need to use what the quest objective is telling you, as well as signposts around the world to know where to go next. And while you do that, you fight different monsters, some of which are already out and about, while others will ambush you. And honestly, a couple of them gave me a mini heart attack. Like, I was jump scared and it was really funny, but I was just like, where did you come from? And speaking speaking of combat, it's pretty straightforward. You press A to unleash up to 3 consecutive attacks that you can also change in the menu system, and this is kind of like Borderlands because with every hit that you do, you can see the amount of damage that you're making, which is very satisfying to see. But here's the thing, the game also forces a stamina meter for your attacks, and once it depletes, you won't cause as much damage anymore. It does fill up pretty quickly, and the only thing that slows it down is you dodging, but it felt awkward to have that in a game that utilized the hack and slash type of combat. It just felt like an element that was added for the sake of it, and as you can see in the majority of my playtime, I completely forgot about it and I would wonder why on earth am I not causing enough damage. Another thing you need to know is that your weapon can unleash a special attack by pressing X if I'm not mistaken, which deals plenty of damage, and you can know that it's ready when it glows. This brought another annoyance where your allies would have the ability ready, but they just don't know how to use it, so you'll find yourself switching between characters very quickly, which is pretty fun most of the time, but here it just felt more as a chore because if you leave them, they really don't know what to do. Yes, they will be causing damage to the enemy, but they're just not efficient at all.
Got you! Bullseye! There! Got you! There! Here! There!
As I mentioned, your triggers transform into different weapons, and one of the game's objectives is to find the different forms by visiting dungeons, some of which are part of your story. So you'll be able to use bows, axes, swords, and fists to name a few, and these will make your fights easier as different enemies are weak to different weapons. These weapons also have their own pros and cons, so let's say an axe will deal plenty of damage but is pretty slow, whereas the fists are very fast but will put you in very close contact with the enemy, which is pretty risky. Weapons are also useful to reach chests around the world because some of them are hidden by rocks with a drawing of the weapon needed to destroy them, so this is a way to go back to areas you've discovered before if you like completing all treasures. Additionally, you can choose inside the menu system what attacks you want each weapon to use. Like the bow can be used to help you shoot arrows but then push you back, or you can choose an ability that shoots arrows but pushes you forward instead. And this opens up the space to customize how you want each character to fight to your heart's content. However, I must say, your allies are just really bad. Like seriously, these are one of the weirdest ally AI I have ever experienced. You guys, they will literally walk over traps in dungeons, stand in front of the enemy while it unleashes its strongest attack, and I found myself literally running out of potions over and over just trying to heal them up. I know this game lets you play with friends, but when you're given a solo option, it felt unfair with how useless these allies can be most of the time. On that note, let's quickly talk about your use of items and crafting in this game. You gather resources from monsters, but you can also find sparkles all around the world, which grants you even more resources, and these are important to craft potions to cure your allies from different status effects like poison and slowing down. I actually forgot what the real name for it was. But you can also create attack and defense manatites, which are your typical accessories that add buffs to your weapons. So some will give you more chances for critical hits, some will grant you more HP if you kill an enemy, or maybe increase your attack percentage if you want to name a few. By the way, these can also be obtained in random chests around the world, and I recommend you hunt them down, but you can also buy them from different shops or buy the recipes and then craft them yourself for less money. This again leads to another bothersome mechanic in the game where anytime you want to access HP, booster, or status ailment items, the menu is tedious to get through because you can't, let's say, use the D-pad to access items quickly. As you can see on the screen, you have multiple entries to go through to get to the item that you want to use. What is weird is that the devs chose to go this route with potions, whereas they made it very easy to switch between your weapons, so hopefully maybe they will patch it up. I know this is more of a quality of life kind of thing, but when you have such bad, horrible allies with you in a game, I think it's wonderful if that can be made just a little bit easier. Going back to combat, you can level up yourself the more you kill enemies, but you can also gather trigger points to level up your trigger's attacks, thus having it stronger, and these can be accessed through the different shrines that you'll unlock. Some shrines can also let you heal up and fast travel as well as save, because you cannot save manually, so make sure you save every time you see a shrine. Let's also talk about the dungeons a little bit here, because this is kind of a dungeon crawler after all. So these have multiple levels with different enemies, treasure chests, but also puzzles and traps to overcome to reach the exit. This is also where you'll find new transformations for your triggers and where you'll have boss battles to defeat, which I have to say are not that engaging. Each boss I fought so far had the same couple of patterns, and all you have to do is mash attack, forget that you actually have a stamina meter, and rush to move your allies out of the way because they're worse than NPCs in Skyrim who think they're capable of battling dragons in their pajamas. And on that note, speaking about dungeons, that is actually where I gave up on Trinity Trigger. I got stuck in a dungeon for 3 hours. Mind you, they are small, but I couldn't find my way out for the life of me. Even when the devs tried to help, I tried looking into every nook and cranny, searched for walls I could possibly destroy, went up and down the stairs, and yeah, I think that was the last straw for me. Let's quickly talk about the performance of Trinity Trigger. As I mentioned, I played this on the Nintendo Switch, and I have to say performance was really good both in docked and handheld mode. I did not encounter any bugs or issues, and overall my experience was very smooth. Even when you move from area to area, there will be loading screens that you have to sit through, but luckily they are pretty short and sweet and don't break your immersion. And before we get into is this game the one for you, let's give a massive shout out to our bubbly of the day, and you can become one in the next video yourself. All you have to do is squish that freaking like button and leave a comment on this video. Today's bubbly shout out goes to Kiruta. I hope I did not kill your name. Kiruta says, new subscriber here, welcome, so happy to have you. I knew I had to subscribe after seeing this amazing list of games. I love how they are all cozy and wholesome looking, but are pretty different kinds and not just farming sims. I really appreciate you adding different variety. Keep up the great work. Thank you so much for the compliment. I always do my best when talking about cozy games to make sure that there's different genres so everybody can find something for themselves, and I hope that you'll stick around for even more bubbly content. So we've talked about the good and the bad. Is Trinity Trigger the one for you? We're gonna go with this game's the one for you, not the one for you, and my personal verdict. Trinity Trigger is the game for you if you have nostalgia for RPGs in the 90s, but you also want to see what they might look like with a more fast-paced action combat. It's also for you if you like simple stories that are not too crazy, like let's say Xenoblade Chronicles. It's also for you if you like to mindlessly mash the attack button. Don't keep forgetting about that freaking stamina meter like I was. It's also for you if you like completionist games, like let's say for beginners, because there are a lot of treasure chests that you need to find, and you also will be going back to find the older ones as you unlock new weapons. It's also for you if you want to play with your friends in local co-op mode, and that might save you from all the frustrations that I had with my allies. And generally, it's for you if you just want a simple RPG to get into, one that you will play as all these crazy massive RPGs are getting out right now. However, Trinity Trigger is not for you if you easily get frustrated by tedious mechanics like worrying about a stamina meter in an action combat game, if you don't like babysitting your allies every 2 seconds, if you don't like puzzles, and if you like more complex storylines and overall a more complex RPG. Guys, I did my best to have a good time with Trinity Trigger, but my frustrations just took over. Eventually, after 13 hours, especially getting stuck in that dungeon, it was my last straw, and I felt bad because I knew now I have to come here and say, guys, I give up, this game is not it, and I don't like to give more negative reviews. Like, even trying to figure my way out was possible as my allies just kept walking on traps over and over again. I was running out of potions to help them. Yeah, I just didn't want to go back to playing it. I just wanted to get this video out and get it over with. I was very excited to play Trinity Trigger and I was expecting a really good game, but combining all the issues with the price tag of $50, I have to say this is a wait for sale for me. But enough about me. What do you think about Trinity Trigger? Are you gonna buy it? Are you waiting for a sale? Let me know. I love to chat with you in the comment section. And before you go and carry on with your day, make sure to squish that like button. That is the biggest favor of all. Stay bubbly, stay positive, and I'll see your gorgeous, beautiful, amazing self in the next one. Bye! Oh, and you thought I forgot about the best people in the world. I never do. This video was definitely brought by the best bubbly community in the world, and you can become a member as well by checking the links in the comment section. So a thank you to my bubbly patrons and YouTube members, and a special shout out goes to the games I mentioned, Faye, Jacob, Stephanie, Steven, Dark One, and Jake Logan for going the extra mile. I appreciate you guys with all my heart.